Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Elizabeth and I teach you how to build your spiritual confidence so you can listen to your intuition and read your tarot cards with ease. And today we are going to talk about skeptics, naysayers, people that give you a hard time when you tell them what you do. And there's been times in my life where I haven't even felt like telling people what I do because of this kind of rubbish that goes on. And I have decided that I'm not going to do that I am going to tell people what I do, because I don't see why I shouldn't. And I don't see why I shouldn't be very proud of what I do. So I thought I'd talk to you today a little bit about how you might be feeling inside and how I'm pretty sure they're feeling inside, and how the two blend together, and the sorts of things in my experience that people might say to you that might cause you to be on the back foot, have to defend yourself, and ways you can manage that so that you keep yourself grounded and spiritually safe. So how do you feel? Well, if I think back to when I became a psychologist, I was really proud of that. And then I came to a point in my life where I decided, with a little bit of regret, but mostly excitement at moving forward with something new, that I was going to leave all that behind and become a psychic, a clairvoyant. And I fell in love with the tarot, and I decided that that was what I wanted to teach. And I put myself out there, studied as hard as I possibly could, and put myself out there and started teaching it and reading it and all of that stuff. And when I did that, I got a huge amount of reaction. I got, "Oh, I love this, Elizabeth. I'm so excited. I'd followed you with all your other work and I can hardly wait to do this. Oh, this is so good. I'm so excited." And I know some of you watching this video right now will have followed me for the entire 6 years that I have been online doing all kinds of different things, and will be saying, "Yeah, I remember that when you did that. Goodness me. Be 3 or 4 years ago now when you decided that you wanted to change." And then there were the others who I reckon had always wanted to be a psychologist themselves and had never actually done it, because the study is really, really hard. The industry itself is really, really hard, and that's a whole other story I won't bore you with now, and why I left. But the study is really, really hard, and it is very, very prestigious to become one. A psychologist, that is. And they were nasty. I got some nastiness. I had emails written to me that I was going to be, and then the people that, decided that I was going to be smote from on high and go to hell for the rest of my, days or whatever, and all the rest of it. So I got all of that and had all that reaction, and it was like, oh, well. And because it was online, it was really manageable. Like, when something's online, you can swipe left, you can ignore someone, you can unfriend them, you can kick them out of your Facebook group. And I did that. You can block their email address. You can do all kinds of things that you don't have to talk to them. But in real life, and I was fortunate, in real life, people didn't really care. It was more online, people cared. Maybe they tittered behind my back, I don't care, but what they say to me about me behind my back, I don't hear it, so I don't care. I don't get my knickers in a knot about anything like that. So I'm wanting to talk today about the face-to-face stuff. And it's a really scary thing to put yourself out there like I did and say, "I'm a clairvoyant, or a psychic. I'm an intuitive. I'm an empath. I'm a teacher. I'm a healer. It's a big thing, a huge thing. And because you're saying, I know, I can feel things, you can ask me and I might give you a bit more insight than another person. And it really drains your confidence because it's something that you're saying you are good at that maybe the next person isn't. And it's something that you can study it and you can practice it, but it's not quite the same as becoming a hairdresser or a plumber. It's very untouchable what it is. It's hard to describe. If you experience it, you even experience that psychic connection in your own way. And as psychics talk to one another, or empaths or healers talk to one another about what they experience, you see these parallels, but it's hard to hold on to. And people who aren't in this space, they find it scary. So it can be really scary to put yourself out there because you're putting yourself out there in a way that people can criticize because you can't always tune in and the messages aren't always clear. And regardless of what anyone says, you're not always right. You might be right a lot of the time, but you're not always right. And it seems to come with a lot of criticism. I think because, as we all know, back in the day, there were the real mediums and the real psychics, and then there were all the charlatans who jumped on the bandwagon and said, well, we can make some money out of this, and they kind of spoilt it, you know? And it makes me really cross that there are people out there who did that because it takes away from the people who really do have a unique and special talent. Not for the people who are in this world, but for the people who look in from the outside and perhaps don't know a lot about it. But it is part of the whole history of what we do, and I'm very interested in all of that. So I can't wait to share with you some of the things I've been reading about that go into the history, and that's this channel. So I'm going to be doing some more of that work too. So if you love what I do, make sure you don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell so that you don't miss my uploads, because especially if you hit the little bell, YouTube will send you a message and tell you that I've put a video up. So if you're feeling scared and you've got it managed most of the time, you're grounded and you're in your confidence and all of those things, and then somebody kind of pokes you when you answer the question truthfully about what you do, it's hard. It's really hard. You feel really, you can feel really defensive. I know, I like to think I'm a really confident person. And I've lots of examples of when I've seen things. I've done Facebook Lives where I've seen things and people have been talking to me through Facebook Live and I've seen things but there's still that little bit there that kind of is like, And also that little bit of, why should I have to feel like I can't say what I do? It bothers me a lot. Somebody who naysays you, who is a skeptic, who's nasty, who criticizes you, who tries to put you down, they're scared too. And you might say, well, Elizabeth, what do you mean they're scared too? Well, here's the thing. There's a reason why they're feeling disrupted in your presence. It may be that you're like me and you've got a giant size aura that kind of goes out and fills the entire room. I've always had it. And people feel that. It could be that. Or it could be they've had a bad experience in the past where they've seen a psychic and the psychic said something that's upset them. Or it could just be that they're a person that's very grounded in science and the here and now and what you can see, taste, touch and smell and prove with a Bunsen burner. And that makes them feel safe. And so when you say, well, actually what I do you can't prove, and there's things I do and say and feel that there's no way I could have known what I say, what I've said or what I've felt before I've said it. And it's, it's unexplained and people don't like that. So they're scared and you're scared. So it's a bit of a recipe for a firecracker to go off. But just because somebody's scared of you doesn't give them the right to treat you badly. It just doesn't. So what I think's helpful is to have some strategies that you can use when somebody does a predictable thing. And one of the most predictable things I've had happen to me, I don't know how many times I've had somebody say to me, oh, tell us the lotto numbers. And I get a bit shitty about that because I actually don't do prediction. My work is about talking to you right now about your deepest emotional and physical being and bringing clarity to you about your next steps, which you are going to choose or we are going to talk about and choose together. I don't predict anything. And I don't know if I've done a video on prediction, but if I haven't, I'll do a YouTube on prediction for you. And actually I have. It's called Why You Shouldn't Tell Your Clients What to Do. And I'll put the link down in the comments. So when they say to me, tell us the lotto numbers, I just look at them and I think you have no right to belittle me like that, because that's what you're doing. You are trying to belittle me. And when someone belittles you, they're putting themselves up here and you down there. And so I just come back with, do you think if I knew the lotto numbers that I would be standing here talking to you? And they go, and it does usually work. People kind of realize you're going to come back with some kind of a response and they're probably better to quit while they're ahead. The other response I had, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I think, and this is what sometimes can happen. You'll have something happen and you'll just be floored by it. And you'll sort of go away and think about it. But when you go away and think about it, you'll come up with your response. And sure enough, I can tell you now, people are so predictable that you'll have someone else do it to you and you will straight up go, here's my answer. And they'll just be like, what? And what keeps you safe is that you don't step into that space of having to justify who you are, what you do. Don't get into a discussion. If someone respectfully wants to ask you about it, that's a very different thing. And often you find people that want to know what you do, the next thing they want is free reading. And that's a whole other problem. But they have no right to belittle you. So if you give them a smart-ass response, well, that's their problem. And you're not nasty. You're just saying. You're just responding to their inappropriate comment. Because it is inappropriate. So what happened was my husband and I at one stage were looking to buy another house, and we met this real estate agent, and he asked me what I did, as everyone does, and I told him, and the response I got was, ooh. And every time we're walking around the house, he was there because he'd opened it for inspection, blah, blah. I was there with my partner, and we weren't, we were just walking around the rooms and whatever. And every time he sort of saw me on my own, he didn't really do it in front of Prince Charming. Of course he didn't, because he'd be worried what Prince Charming might do, I'm sure. But he just was like, woo. And I didn't know what to do with it, so I sort of ignored it. And I guess that's a response, just ignore it. Like, what's wrong with you? But really, in hindsight, what I needed to do was to step into it. Like I used to when I was counselling. If somebody was screaming at me like it was my fault, I'd say, well, it seems like you're really upset about that. Do you want to tell me about it? So what I should have done was looked at him and I said, what are you so worried about, or what are you so scared of? Because clearly he was worried about something, or he was scared about something, or I was freaking him out. And last I looked, I've got a large aura, but I didn't really think that I looked like a witch. Maybe I do look like a witch. I don't know. Got long fingernails. I really needed to say to him, what are you so worried about? And if he said, what do you mean? So, well, you're the one going, woo, every time you see me. I need to be able to have a conversation with you. So that probably would have stopped it or diffused it. And if we'd gone down the pathway of dealing with him anymore, I would have had to have said something, because man, oh man, I didn't think I could cope with this woo business. The other example I can give you is I was at a plant show, like a cactus show, and I was helping to set up. And one of the elderly members that had come from interstate to this particular show was he was determined to prove I couldn't see things. And of course I did see things. That was the funny part. We're in the middle of this show where I've got people coming and going that I know, bringing their plants in. I so wasn't in the head space of reading tarot. Let me tell you, it's another whole hobby of mine. And I don't know what happened, but he was like wanting me to tell him things in the middle of all of that. And I should have looked at him and given him my usual response, which tends to shut people down, which is, now is not the time for me to tune in and tell you something intensely personal that perhaps even you didn't know about yourself. And I find that is very helpful for people who are just so at you and at you. And you can use that real broken record technique with boundaries where, someone asks you the same thing again, you just give them the same response. Oh, you can't do it. That's what they all say. You just turn around, look at them, look them in the eye and say, now is not the time for me to be tuning in and tell you something intensely personal about you that maybe you don't even know about, that you hadn't even considered about yourself, in the middle of a cafe, schoolyard, plant show, and you don't have space to process it. Leave it at that. I find that's really helpful. Don't get into a conversation like I did with, tell me what my partner looks like. Tell me when I met him. Tell me how old he is. Tell me, and as it was, I was able to kind of tell him the colour of his hair and, things were coming in. And of course, the trouble is when I open up like that, I get very exhausted. My nervous system and everything opens up. And I remember once I was actually at a tarot study group and I started reading, and it ended up like, oh, that's a whole other story. In fact, I'll leave that and I'll talk about what to do when people are really supportive and kind of get you into situations that aren't helpful or who want readings, what to do with them. We'll do a whole other video on that. So that was awful. And I went away thinking, what was I doing answering all those questions in the middle of, it was awful. It really was awful. And so I decided that was not anything I was ever going to have happen to me again. So, of course, my worst experience was actually in my local cafe with this old man who we'd said hi to a few times. And I went to my post box, which is around the corner, and I was so excited because this deck of cards arrived, which is the Paul Foster Kay's Builders of the Aditum Tarot. I had waited for months for this tarot deck to arrive. And I opened it up and looked at all the cards, and I was so excited. And he came over because he could see I was opening it, and I was saying to Prince Charming, look at these cards, oh, they're so gorgeous, blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, what are you opening? Didn't think anything of it and said, oh, this is a deck of tarot cards I've been waiting for ages. Oh my goodness. He went off, like seriously went off. Don't tell me you're one of those people. Do you read the cards? Oh, and I said, yes, I read and I teach. Or, I have done for quite a while now. And he was like, oh, all those people, they're all charlatans and they're this and they're that. And I must admit, I found myself justifying, and that is a big trap, because when you start talking to somebody that's in that headspace, you cannot win. He said, I went and saw a psychic once and she couldn't tell me anything about me at all. And I just looked at him and I said, well, given the headspace you're in, it's highly likely you sat down and you weren't open to being read. And he went, oh, that's what they all say. And I just thought, wow. So in the end, it was so unpleasant. I just started looking at all my cards. Prince Charming didn't know where to look. So that we ended up having a huge conversation afterwards, because he'd only just come sort of to working with me more closely. He'd been working quite separately from me. So he was off at work doing his thing and I was off during the day, and I'd come home to him and I'd sort of tell him about like that experience at Plant Club and all those other things. And he'd be like, oh yeah. It was the first time he'd ever really been in the middle of it, and he really didn't know what to do because he just wouldn't stop. And in the end, he tried to sort of diffuse it. That didn't work. In the end, I just was like, talk to the hand because the face don't want to know you. So I just blanked him, which is so rude, I know. And we haven't seen him since, which is really sad. Like, he ended up he actually realised in himself that he'd gone too far, because he could see, I think, how upset I was because I wouldn't speak to him. And I'd never, ever been like that towards him before. And he sort of picked up his parcels and left, which was really sad. But when someone's like that, and he was so defended and so angry, and you just think, I even tried saying to him, because he started doing the tell me something, and I did the whole, I don't like, now here is not the place for me to see something intensely personal that you might not have even considered about yourself, because you won't be able to process it in the middle of a cafe. And he then was like, well, what can you see about me? Which, fear. Absolute fear. And I think him responding like that and doing a lot of the things that other people had done caused me to kind of sit down and think, hang on a minute, what is going on here? And if someone is frightened, that is exactly what they're going to do. And second of all, they're just not going to stop. So if you found, like, it's funny, somebody wrote about, I think it was in one of the groups I'm in, about being at a dinner party and her brother-in-law does this to her all the time. He attacks her. And that's absolute fear. It really is absolute fear. And if he's a brother-in-law, he's obviously married to your sister. So then there's that fear of loss that comes into it that often happens with relatives where we get scared that, the person we love, it's unconscious. We just get scared they're going to leave us and go off with whoever it is that they're talking to from their family rather than be with us or be disloyal or whatever. So there's that. And then there's the fear that maybe he's got a few skeletons in the closet he doesn't want you to see. So, with that sort of situation, if you're sitting at a dinner party and they're attacking you, I think the only thing you can turn around and say is, look, we are going to have to agree to disagree, because I'm a psychic. I stand by that. I read the tarot. I stand by that. It is what I enjoy doing in the world. I am not criticizing you about what you do in the world. So we're either going to have a pleasant dinner together or we're not. Like that's kind of where you're going with it. And if you step into it and name their behavior as being unreasonable, because that's exactly what they're being. You have every right to believe what you believe in your life. Every right, whether whatever it is, you have every right to believe it. So don't let anybody belittle you. And if that starts happening and you can't get away, I mean, for me, I was sitting in the middle of a cafe. I don't have to have someone is an acquaintance attacking me. So I just was like, don't talk to me. I'm not going to talk to you, so don't talk to me. But if you're at a dinner party, it's very different. But I think turning around and naming it and actually saying, I'm not criticizing you for what you do in life and what you believe in. So please give me the same respect. And it's so hard because you're kind of stepping in on the front foot. I mean, it's all very well me saying I could do it, but I can do it because I had like 13 years working as a psychologist, and I had people say all kinds of stuff to me. And I had to learn not to let them get away with it, because you have to keep control of the counselling room. And so, if things happened and I handled it badly, I learned to go away and think about it and analyse it. And then, of course, you'd get in the counselling room and sure enough, it'd happen again. And the next time you'd be so much better at handling it. So that's my response to you. Don't be on the back foot about it. Be on the front foot and be very proud of what you do. Very proud. And very proud of yourself that you put yourself out there and said, you know what? If you need help with something, I am working on my personal development. I am working on my spiritualism. I am working on my ability to see deeper than the obvious. I am working on my ability to call on the universal energy, which we know is everywhere, and use that to do really great things. And be proud to stand in that. Be absolutely proud to stand in that. So I think I will finish on that note. I hope that has been helpful to you. I hope I have given you some techniques that you can use to take out into the world. And next time you come across someone that gives you grief, to be as equally able to respond in a way that shuts them down, because it's just not appropriate. Take care, everybody, and I will be back very soon, because we are about to start October, the Connect with Your Deck Challenge. So please make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notifications bell, and so you don't miss my uploads. And I will see you very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.